What's up, everybody? Metal Dave Glessner here, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, bringing you another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. Today, we are joined by guitarist Art Villarreal from S.A. Slayer, a legendary, celebrated South Texas, San Antonio heavy metal band that is currently in the process of reuniting after some 40-odd years or whatever.
Who's counting?
Yeah, who's counting? There is a demand for S.A. Slayer. Some gigs coming up overseas, Hell's Heroes in Houston, Texas. This is part 2 of our S.A. Slayer segment. We had guitarist Bob Catlin on a previous episode.
Yeah, so chapter 1 would be Bob.
Chapter 1, yeah.
Chapter 2, Art Villarreal.
This is the unholy book, right? So
yeah.
Chapter 1... Bob
Nice.
Catlin. Chapter 2 today is Art Villarreal. And Art, that was fun, man. You guys obviously have a lot of history together. The Prepare to Die EP is a much celebrated, highly collectible vinyl release. The original pressing, especially, if you can find that, good luck. But yeah,
I've got 2 in case anybody has a bag of money they want to give me. They can have one of mine. So.
Yeah, Jason can be bought. Only one of them, though,
Yeah,
right? You can't part with both of them. Yeah, S.A. Slayer, heavy metal band out of San Antonio, was around during the mid-'80s, put out a couple records, an EP and a full-length album. Go for the Throat was the title of the full-length. But then disappeared, and as bands do, guys grew up, grew older, separated, etc. And all these years later, there is a demand for a reunion. So
well, and there's the other Slayer that had some sort of say in one of them's got to go. And,
there's another Slayer?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I think so. My point, that's part of the story, but it doesn't, obviously, here we are, it doesn't kill off the idea of how good the fucking band was. It doesn't kill anything, actually, the fact that someone else kind of got rights to the name early enough to sort of, there were things happening in the band anyway. Let's not... Lest we not forget that Dave McClain, drummer from S.A. Slayer, was in Machine Head for 23 years, made some phenomenal, groundbreaking thrash albums with Machine Head, and went through all of the motions of changing, slightly change of styles during the 90s and things with Machine Head, which is all important to the landscape. And now has been for years. He was actually playing in Sacred Reich out of Phoenix, Arizona. Machine Head, of course, being a Bay Area band. Phil Dimmel, Rob Flynn, etc. So it's important to also talk about Sacred Reich being one of those bands. I mean, Jason Newsted, Flotsam, and Sacred Reich have this, they're a conglomerate in Phoenix, just like, I don't know, Slayer and Watchtower would have been down here. So when you think about the scope, it's deep.
Yeah.
But Dave McClain's part of it. And he was in Sacred Reich before Machine Head, did Machine Head forever, and then has been back for years now with Sacred Reich. Not even ironic to me. And then, of course, Don Van Stavern was very fortunate to be, as well as other members of S.A. Slayer, including Steve Cooper, rest in peace, and Dave McClain, to get in good with Riot guitar player Mark Reale, who's buried in San Antonio. He loved Texas, he loved San Antonio, and befriended tons of musicians and friends there, and created a relationship, especially with Van Stavern, and Van Stavern is carrying the torch for Riot, as is well documented, with the record Thundersteel that has Bobby Jarzambek on the band and in the band, and on that record, Thundersteel created a second wind for Riot with Mark Reale, and Mark Reale, rest in peace, has been gone for quite some time now, but Don Van Stavern carrying that torch for Riot original member, founding member of San Antonio Slayer. So there's that. Art gives us a story today about how they came together. And our episode with Bob says it slightly, basically the same thing, but in his words too, about what they recall about getting that group of fantastic together for the first time, and how they met Steve Cooper and reeled him in to be their front person. And the rest is history, because the Prepare to Die and Go for the Throat are amazing songwriting. It's technical, progressive power metal influenced by early Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and then later hugely influenced by some of the songs just sound like Merciful Fate to me. So if you like that ilk, you're going to dig it, and you'll like hearing about it. Today was great, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And for people watching and listening, we should point out that S.A. Slayer started with a singer named Chris Kronk, and then recorded with a singer named Steve Cooper. And Steve, unfortunately, passed away in 2006. So our very own Jason here is stepping in to do lead vocals during these reunion shows. So it's all part of that South Texas heavy metal family and camaraderie and that brotherhood that I think is really cool, that not only the fans get to celebrate, but all you guys, grew up together, went to high school together, or you weren't very far apart in age and you came up in the same scene. So there is a real brotherhood involved here.
I'm so excited. This is a fire that just cannot be put out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of those trick birthday candles.
I love it. I love it. Art Villarreal today from S.A. Slayer on the Talk Louder podcast.
Awesome.
Art, good to see you again, buddy. It's been a while. I haven't seen you since you got... Well, no, I've seen since it hasn't been that long. Jason invited me out to a rehearsal you guys were doing at Space.
Oh shit! Yeah.
What was that? Metal Allegiant or
nope, close.
Something you were going to Germany or something? Is that right?
Yeah. Was it Carion or was it the Legion?
It was the Legion.
The Legion, yeah.
South Texas Legion.
That's it. Yeah.
Over at Chip's house, maybe.
Nope, it was in Austin. Space rehearsal in Austin. Do you even remember that?
I do remember it now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I brought some guitar cabinets for you guys to use, and we just ran the set real quick over there.
That's right.
Metal Dave came out. That's the last time he saw you.
Oh, wow. A couple of years, man. Hey, I like your tank t-shirt.
Thanks, man.
Blood, guts, and beer.
Buddy of mine, Nathan Nodal, sent me this. He's in London. It's a Filth Hounds of Hades shirt.
Badass.
Yeah.
I love it. A cornerstone of the new wave of British heavy metal.
Well, there's
collection.
There's good reason why you are here today, and okay. I want Dave, since he's the real journalist here. I'm just Beavis. I'm Beavis, and he's Wayne.
Okay.
I don't know which is worse. Yeah.
Butthead or Wayne or Garth and Beavis. It's the same.
Yeah. Well, as long as he's not Stuart, that's okay.
Well, Stuart gets a bad rap, just like Winger does.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, obviously we're, want to talk about the S.A. Slayer reunion. Sure. And we had an episode previous with Bob Catlin, so we'll try not to retread a lot of the same material. And I also want to keep in mind that, the three of us are well-versed in Texas metal and S.A. Slayer's place in Texas metal. So forgive me if some of the questions are, old news to the three of us and our listeners in Texas. But
no worries.
For those who are unfamiliar or not as familiar around the world, we want to kind of make sure we bring them up to speed on the history and what you're doing. So
sounds good.
SA Slayer, much celebrated South Texas metal band from the early to mid 80s.
Yeah.
And reuniting with Jason on vocals to do some shows.
Mhm.
So I guess just sort of, summarize the conversations that took place to lead us to this point. And it's been a while since all you guys were together. So tell us about knocking off the dust and getting back together and gearing up for these shows.
Well, it's something we, Don and I have talked about every couple of years, whenever we see each other. I don't remember really having any conversations with any of the other guys over the years about getting a reunion done, but he sometimes we'd see each other out and he would kind of throw it out there. But I guess the pieces would just never fit because everybody's kind of dispersed all over the country,
Yeah.
So lining up schedules was something to tackle. We never really got deep into the conversation, but we always thought it was a prospect and a good idea. But this time around, I guess he just got an offer from a promoter at Hell's Hero for Hell's Heroes, and he sent me a message, and I didn't have his number on my new phone, his ID, so I didn't know who it was from. And he opened with a "Hey, sexy" kind of thing, and I thought it was spam. Yeah. So I just kept playing with him on that, and I didn't know it was him.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
He doesn't start every conversation with you like that?
Well, yeah, but so did the spammer. And I didn't have his ID, so I didn't know if it was Ivan or Don.
I don't know if you know this, but I was at, and we talked about this a little bit with Bob. It was Igniter or one of my thousands of bands was playing at that place that used to be Capone's, a rock box, one of those down there.
Downtown San Antonio. Yeah, San Antonio.
Yeah, and San Antonio, yeah. And Night Demon.
Yeah.
Wait, his name's escaping me. Help me, Dave.
Jarvis Leatherby.
Thank you. Jarvis was.
That's why you're in that spot.
Yeah, we're standing. Thank you. Well, we're a bit dizzy last night. We broken teeth played last night, and
oh wow,
we're a little spent. Right?
Yeah, I get you.
But no excuses, whatever. So Jarvis and I are having a chat on the loading dock of I keep calling it Rock Box. Sure.
I still call it that.
Yeah. And then he's approached me, and at this point I don't really know Jarvis that much. I knew who he is, and I've seen Night Demon, a handful of times by then, so I knew who he was, but I didn't know how involved he was or how friendly he was with now I know Christian Larson, the main promoter for and creator, as far to my knowledge, of Hell's Heroes.
Okay.
And by this point, they had already done a handful, maybe 3, 4, 5 Hell's Heroes by this point, and it was gaining popularity and becoming large. He brings up Slayer. He brings up SA Slayer, and that he says, so I've been talking to Dave McClain, on tour. We're sharing a bus. Dave McClain, late night, having drinks. We start talking about old Slayer days. I've done the same with Van Stavern. And your name keeps coming up to fill the shoes as frontman, of course, for filling in for the late, great, fantastical, mythological, amazing Steve Cooper.
Yeah.
And he didn't use all those wonderful words in front of Steve's name. That's pure Jason, because of the respect and love that I have,
of course,
had for that guy. And I was, my eyes got a little big because Jarvis was smiling and excited about this sort of hopeful premonition of a reunited Slayer for
Yeah.
some gigs, and that he wanted to help sort of like, sort of pull the strings and get everybody in the same room together. And like I said, he had been talking with multiple people besides Dave McLean and Don Van Stavern. Not even in Texas. They were out on the road overseas, and he was meeting up with them to hang out or to even do gigs with. And this had come up, and this was the first time someone outside of the idea from Dave, either Dave or Don, just like shooting the shit, bringing it up to me, and it being a very short, and me even not being negative, I'm ready. My phone's not ringing, but when it rings, I'm going to say yes.
Okay, of course.
And so Jarvis bringing it up was like exciting to me because it made it feel like it was not 10 miles away, that it was like now it's 5 miles away of it actually happening. So talking to Bob and letting him know about my run-in about it was minimal, but positive and coming from great source.
Right.
Hearing him talk about talks he's had with Don and talks that he does admit that he's had with you once or twice. We're talking years ago, whether you guys recall it or not.
Yeah. Well, just a couple of years ago, your name came up, and Don and I were at one of Ron's shows, his Rest Tribute. Mm-hmm. And we just threw around the idea, and we talked about, your name came up. I mean, we just thought you were a natural shoo-in. I mean, you used to jump up on stage and sing with Steve, for Pete's sake. I mean,
yeah.
And y'all were tight. And I mean, we just couldn't think of a more perfect fit. It was obvious to us.
Well, and not to toot my own Slayer horn, that's me singing on Power to Burn and Go for the Throat.
I was just listening to Power to Burn last night.
Those backup vocals are
the
me.
Chants. Yeah,
me and Mike Solis and Gene Bartholomew and Don.
I was wondering who that was.
Billy White. Billy White. That's Bill. Yeah, I know.
You got Billy.
Yeah. There's a picture of us hanging around in the control room.
The boss.
Yeah, and exactly. And you've probably seen the photo. It's a quite excellent photo.
Yeah.
And it's Don, Gene Bartholomew, Mike Solis, myself, Billy Wyatt, and
I think Rick Shreves. I think I saw
Rick
that
Shreves
picture.
is sitting at the board at the mixing desk, and Bob is in there. Bob had just walked in. He's wearing sunglasses. I think he had just come in. And that is the moment that we were recording those backup vocals for the Throat record. So
nice.
Yeah, I feel great that my name is, like you called it, a shoe-in. It's like there's other people that could do this, but I feel strong about it.
Well, I mean, but look, man, I mean, you were part of the fraternity. I mean, sure, we could go outside of the fraternity and the Texas metal scene. I mean,
thank you for saying that. Working hard for the fraternity, that's a big sandwich.
Yeah, I mean, to Art's point, I mean, you guys were all peers. You all grew up together. You have the same interest and the same focus and the same taste in music, and you and Steve had similar vocal styles. I mean, it's a total no-brainer. Yeah. I know it's an honor for Jason to I think he's being humble, and rightfully so. I get it, but for anyone on the outside, it's difficult for Jason to see it. But anyone on the outside, this is a no-brainer.
Well, I say it a lot, and I'm beginning to hate myself because I say this a lot. But it's that imposter syndrome. Like, what, me? Are they pointing at me? And
well, that's surprising to me.
And at the same time, I'm not going to let anybody else take the microphone away from me. You know what I mean? So it's this like, well, fuck, what do I kind of, it's like.
So Art, when did this all start to gel for real? Because obviously, the conversation has come up late at night at somebody's gig or whatever. But now we're talking real deal. When did this all become very real to you?
Well, after I figured out Don wasn't a sexy girl on texting me. We started talking about it, and over the course of
Well,
I mean, that's subjective, of course, but He could be whatever he wants. That's fine. But over the course of a week, I was kind of touch and go with him because I wasn't really, there were questions like, okay, well, who else is involved? And I had to think, am I really going to be able to do this? And am I going to be able to manage fitting in the time to do the homework and do this really, really the best possible way? So it took a couple of days to think about it. And then, and he was telling us that we needed to come up with a yes or no pretty soon. So I went ahead and green lighted. I told him I was in, and then everything kind of just fleshed out from there. We got into a group email and started putting the pieces together and coordinating, talking about set lists.
How did it feel to you when you knew it was coming together? Because I mean, this has to be going back years and years and years.
I mean, kind of surreal because we've talked about it over the years, and we're really far out here now. I mean, we're what 45 years removed.
Yeah.
So it's a trip because I don't think we've been in the same room together, all of us, in a rehearsal situation since 1982 or 83, at least me.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's
and certainly not me. I mean, I wasn't. I mean, I was there, but I'm not in the rehearsal room unless I'm visiting and listening to the Slayer dudes play "Island of Domination." Because that has happened. I think I've been to some Carion backyard shows and a Carion rehearsal before, but an SA Slayer show down in the Babcock, Fredericksburg area, Danville, the whole historical area where sort of the band had been kind of birthed.
That was our Animal House. I mean, that was our rehearsal place. That was our headquarters. But before that, we were at my house, my mom's house on the northeast side of San Antonio.
And Bob mentions that in the golden years, if you will, right?
Early on, that's where we were spawned, over on the northeast side of San Antonio. Bob and I met Dave at a Battle of the Bands. They were playing with Seance. And we're all about 16, 17 years old. We saw them there. They were very good. And Bob and I were in our garage band named Blitzkrieg. We had a couple of outings. That was with Harlan on vocals. And we lost our drummer and bass player. And back then in San Antonio, in the San Antonio Express, you could actually put out a little ad for I think it was actually bands or a band section or musicians wanted or something. Mm-hmm. So I put an ad out, got a couple of weird calls, and Don called. And after a couple of minutes, I figured out we had met them like a month or two prior at the Battle of the Bands. So I remember the ad specifically stated our influences, which are obvious at the time, the new wave of British metal and all that. So back then there were maybe 10 kids that knew about Iron Maiden. I mean, this was early on, man. Yeah. Like 80 or 81, the summer of 81.
Yeah, this is all coinciding exactly with Bob. So this is great stuff.
So he actually remembered. So
yeah, he did.
I like to tease him. Yeah.
No, that's fine. Me too.
But So we lined it up. We kind of had a wow moment, like, oh wow, you're the guys we saw over there at the Battle of the Bands, And so he explained what they were looking for, and we were looking for the exact same things. We had the same musical influences and the same goals. So we met up over at my house. Dave brought over his giant metal, his chrome kit, double bass, and to find a drummer at that time with a double bass kit was in itself something pretty badass, pretty awesome.
Yeah,
So they were all set up. They sounded great. We went through probably at least half of the Killers album. A couple of originals that I had around. I think Don maybe had one. Maybe I had one or two, and some Angel Witch, and that's and some Motorhead that Bob and I brought over. So we went through some covers, and we rehearsed that for. We were excited about forming something really cool. We didn't really, we didn't know where we were going to play. We weren't club age yet. So, but whatever, we didn't care. We just wanted to get together, play. We knew we had a pretty cool connection, something good going. But for whatever reason, they went back with Seance for a minute, did a couple of gigs with them. I guess they tried to give it another shot because that was a gigging band. They had a singer and they were already out there.
Yeah.
And we didn't have it. Well, we had Harlan for a minute, I think. Yeah, I think Harlan was involved. That's right, for a couple of rehearsals. But they came back later that year, and we tried it again. With the same tunes. This time, Bob was really excited. He got a PA. I had subs in two ways in my living room, some JBLs. Back then, they were massive. Had them in this little living room, and so we did our after-school rehearsals for a while. And Don found Chris Kronk somewhere, brought him over. He sounded really good. And he told me, well, he's got more of a kind of Paul Di'Anno range. It's not really up in the rafters with his range like a Halford. He's more of a Di'Anno kind of sounding guy. Perfect. Sounds great to me. So then that's when it all started to come together. We finally had 5 pieces,
Yeah.
And right a couple of months later, we had an artist. Bob and I had a buddy at school that we'd known since middle school, and he was very talented, and he started making our flyers. So the logo came up.
Do you have the name?
Well, the name. Okay, so after school.
No, I mean, do you have the name of the artist?
Ruben Rodriguez.
Oh, Ruben Rodriguez.
Yeah. So Dave has a story. He told Bob. He's going to tell you.
Yeah, I'll make it quick this time because I've already told the story. But I used to work with Ruben, and
tell him where. It has to do with
at a sheet metal factory in San Antonio. It's called Dot Metals, and I had no idea he was connected to SA Slayer. So he and I we're working together in the sheet metal factory. It turns out, of course, he's a rocker. It turns out he's an artist. I go over to his place. He's got all these flyers. Like, he lived in a trailer home, and he had flyers plastered up the walls and across the ceiling. And he was a great artist. And so I had this leather jacket, a black leather jacket, and I asked him if he would paint the Motorhead War Pig on the back of this jacket. And so I loaned him the jacket, and he did. He painted it so it's the silver War Pig on the back of this black leather jacket.
Nice.
And then I didn't put it together that he's also the guy that did the Slayer logo and the demon, the serpent warrior guy on the back. Yeah. I'll prepare to die. So anyway, I take the Motorhead jacket to an in-store when Motorhead is passing through San Antonio, and I get all the guys to sign it, and Lemmy takes a picture of it with it on his arm. And it's in the closet. I still have it. I showed it on the Bob episode, but it's behind me now.
It's fucking excellent. Ruben killed it.
He did a great job.
So fucking good.
He was talented.
Yeah, and it turns out that's how me and Jason met for the first time, because I was wearing that jacket at a dive bar in Corpus Christi called Zeros that you're probably familiar with.
I've heard of it.
And I'm down there with some buddies of mine from a San Antonio band, and I'm watching the band, and it's loud and you can't hear, and I get this tap on my shoulder, and I turn around, and it's Jason, and he goes, "Badass jacket, dude." And, I can barely hear anything. And I was like, oh, wow, that's the guy from Dangerous Toys. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell is he doing at this dump in Corpus Christi? I didn't know anything about him except I recognized his face. Yeah. So the band finishes playing, and he introduces himself. I say, yeah, I know who you are. And I said, you can come back to the hotel with us later if you want after the show. So he came back to the room, and we all hung out. And that's the very first time I met Jason. And it all goes back to Ruben Rodriguez. So there's the connection. So go ahead with your
story. Cool. Yeah, you had your signal on your back, your flag.
Exactly. Cool. And so he's the guy that did the Slayer logo and some of the artwork on the Prepare to Die.
Let's call it 6 degrees of Prepare to Die.
Exactly.
Nice.
So sorry about the long detour. But
no, that's cool. I want to see that jacket.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
If you want me to unplug, I can get it in about.
Is it white? It's like a white paint on.
It's silver paint on black leather. Stand by and I'll grab it.
Yeah, go grab it. We got him a second. Go get it. It's worth it.
So on the name thing, if you want me to keep chatting about that.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
So how we got the name together? Well, okay.
Here he is. He's back. He's back.
Yeah, we didn't get Ruben on board until a little bit later, until we had our name and everything.
Put my ears back on.
Bob and I were literally having a phone conversation after school. Oh wow, look at that!
Yeah, I'm telling you,
that is killer.
It's pretty sick.
That's beautiful.
So I'm standing behind that jacket.
Yeah.
Going, oh my God. You know, I forgot there was a band on stage going, where does one get a jacket like that?
Wow.
Yeah, it's fucking unreal.
Yeah. Ruben Rodriguez, thank you wherever you are.
Killer. So the band name, where's this band name coming?
Bob and I were on the phone after school, and I'm in my living room with the big speakers and the big drum kit, and rehearsal's going to start in a couple of hours, and Bob and I are on the phone talking about band name ideas, song lists, and whatever, and he brought up the name Dragon Slayer, and I suggested, why don't we just cut it? Take the dragon off and just call it Slayer. And he thought that was cool. So we didn't really, and Don and Dave were cool. We told them about it later. We thought it sounded good. We didn't really mull over a lot of names, really. I guess we didn't stress on it too much. We just thought that one worked and just kept it. And then I guess we started seeing logo ideas from Ruben. We were still in school, in high school. And so, and I remember, fast forward a couple of months, that was like the end of 81, fall, start of school and through Christmas. We already had a show booked by that February, I think, and our first flyer. So we got our first flyer that Ruben drew up. I remember seeing it in the rehearsal room. And it was, wow, we're official. This is killer. Then we have a flyer. We have the date on here. This is like mind blowing. And so I guess it was kind of in the Iron Maiden model where we had a character, right? They had Eddie the Head. We had a guy. So Ruben drew up this executioner guy on the first flyer. That came later. We had several Eddie the Heads. We had several. The first one was the Executioner. I guess that's the one that stuck.
I remember the Executioner.
Yeah, the Executioner, the logo. Like, man, we are official. This is badass. It was real exciting. And so we were off to the races. So we did that gig with Kronk. And we did a San Antonio College video department show one morning.
I've seen the photos.
Yeah, I've seen
we
that.
We with Kronk before. We did two. We did one with Kronk, and then later with Steve later that year.
I've only seen remnants and proof of that with Steve. I didn't know you guys done.
Yeah,
that.
we did one with Kronk. We did a video of Kronk. So they're both floating out there around somewhere.
Nice.
Hopefully.
Nice.
And then later that spring we did one with Steve. We did another gig at the Blue Room with Steve. So they were both of those first shows were at that Blue Room. I don't know if you ever went there. We called it the Blue Room. It was actually Fun and Games. It was a huge like warehouse type space with a miniature golf on one side and then like the foosball pool on the other side.
This sounds familiar to me, whether it was Bob's interview recent or old year ago or more with McLean.
Yeah,
where he's talking about the Blue Room. That
was our hangout.
Okay, this is coming back to me.
So that was our all the Roosevelt students, would go there. Not all of them, but maybe the more wayward ones. We had our air hockey there, your pool, and we never really went to the miniature golf side. I guess that was for kids on Sunday. We were there weekend nights. They had a house system there and they'd pipe in Joe Anthony's show every night.
Yeah.
So it was our hang, and I had an English class with the owner's son. And this was before Slayer. I talked him into letting Bob's previous band, Blizzard, Bob and Harlan were in a band called Blizzard.
Okay.
And we were juniors in high school. And I talked my classmate, I forgot his name, into asking his dad if Blizzard could practice over there. So Dad, was an industrious guy, and he thought it would be great to let him rehearse there. And for payment on weekend nights, he would charge a cover for the kids to come in and watch Blizzard set up by the pool tables. Well, it went so well that he cleared out the miniature golf gear and built a stage on the other side.
Nice.
This is the kind of this is the shit dreams are made of. This is
Yeah.
where you're creating your scene. So I wish we knew these guys' names from the Blue Room, because this is
I think it was William.
this is pretty awesome when you kind of like break it down. Like your explanation of how you had English class with the son and planted the seed, and then
Yeah.
you had this thing blossom is much more romantic way of telling the same story that other Slayer members have mentioned. I like your version better.
Oh, good.
As you're going in and going, hey bro, hey buddy, hey, can we rehearse at Fun and Games? And fast forward, you're putting on shows by the pool tables, and then eventually there's no more fucking mini golf. Heavy metal killed mini golf at Fun and Games.
Only in San Antonio.
Right. So it's Fun and Slayer instead of
Fun and Slayer. And
Fun and Slayer.
There was Blizzard
Fun
was
and
the
Blizzard.
first band to set up there, and then the word got out, and then Pete starts booking other bands.
Okay.
These other bands start, and then our other high school buddies have another band there, and now it's off to the races.
Nice.
Right? So I didn't know these other bands were around town. There were some really good ones that went in there, and then some other local heavy hitters like Force, and Wicked Step, started playing there. And these were the big kids. Like me and Bob were still in high school. And we thought, oh man, now they got these guys here. So that's when we all started connecting there. It started to become a hub. That was our meeting spot to find other bands around town.
Your scene had started to stretch.
And actually, that's how we met the Jerzombics.
Footprint.
Because Terrorwell's in, they're booked, and we met them there during the Blizzard days.
Wow.
And so we became buddies back then. When Bob and I were still in Blitzkrieg, Bob and Harlan were still in Blitzkrieg, and me and Ron and Bobby, or me and and Bob would just like we'd hang. We'd go over to their pad on the southeast side of town and just goof around and listen to metal or whatever. So that's how we became friends with them. So this network started kind of growing out of that side of town.
Yeah, man.
And then when Slayer formed, it was already there. The stage was there. That was the natural place to gig. Because it was already up and running as a venue for a good year or so. And so we did our first 2 Slayer gigs there. It was a lot of fun. It was amazing.
Wow.
It was a great scene.
That's awesome.
So at some point, you guys start writing original material. Now, we prodded Bob about this a little bit.
Happened pretty fast.
He had a lot of good insight, and as best as his recollection was, right?
Yeah.
And it was amazing, just because of the obvious influences and things like that, of what you guys were into and what you borrowed from, and where your riffs and where. Eventually you end up with Steve Cooper. When was the first time you saw Steve Cooper perform, or do you recall how you kind of stole him out and put him in front?
No, I remember the moment we saw Steve, or I saw Steve.
Tell us.
After a while, I kind of started figuring out what I was doing back then, without even realizing it. I was kind of glue. I was like putting people together, right? And so I didn't meet Steve the first time I saw him. He was with Liquid Sky.
Yes.
And they were playing a show out in Bernie. A buddy of mine came over and said, hey, man, get in the Jeep. Liquid Sky's playing out in Bernie. Okay. And this was right before, I think, we started our rehearsals at Slayer. It was early in that school year. And Bernie is about 45 minutes out of town. It's in the hill country. The gig was at an old dance hall.
Okay, I think I've been there.
Pretty rustic, yeah.
There's probably not a whole lot of dance halls in Bernie.
No. It's probably the same one, but I just remember seeing Steve with the Johnny Winter hair just draping down.
Yeah.
And he's in that pose, and they're kicking off Island of Domination. And my little brain was just blown.
Yeah.
Like his presence was just, he was glowing, and he was hitting the notes just perfectly, and he had the range. I'd never seen a local singer do that. So I just was freaking out. And that's what I remember from that show, them playing Island of Domination. Of course, it was Liquid Sky was John Grell and some other guys. John Grell, a really good local guitarist.
Oh, yeah.
Later formed Wintercat. We became friends later. But, I kept that in my mind for a while. And I would once in a while talk about Steve to these guys. Man, this singer, I mean, you wouldn't believe it. He was just amazing, And then we had the 99.5 Kiss Homegrown album.
Yeah.
That had been out earlier. It was out. I think had already been out. So we heard it, Liquid Sky, Cry for the Kings.
Yep.
Great song.
Yes.
But I told him, like, man, I've seen this guy live. He just blew my mind, his stage presence and everything. So somehow or another, through the 3 degrees or 6 degrees of Prepare to Die,
I love it.
a girlfriend of a girlfriend of somebody through Don was on the case to find Steve Cooper, like in the spring of 1982.
Wow.
And you couldn't find we weren't in the phone book, Steve wasn't in the phone book.
Right.
So he found his number. He found his number through a few girlfriends down the line or whatever. And we had like a little girl phone party. We were so excited to talk to Steve on the phone. I think we all kind of talked to him. We moved the phone around at my house.
Wow, that's adorable.
And we were giddy little
I love
girls
it.
having a popcorn PJ party.
Did you feel like, no, this is really great and it's fucking real because you're still kids?
Oh, yeah.
And Steve obviously was a name guy in San Antonio.
He was a name guy.
Or quickly had become a name guy, especially in your circle because he was kind of a unicorn.
Yeah.
A little bit, right?
Yeah. He was on vinyl and everything. He was on the radio,
Yeah.
And
wow.
So, the first time I saw him, I thought he was a unicorn. That's for sure. But so we invited him over to try out, and somehow I ended up picking the tune for him to try out, And I think Bob and I talked about which song to audition with. So we wanted to do something really challenging. So I thought, okay, well, here's this song on side B of Stained Class called Savage. That intro I'm not a singer, but it sounds like it's pretty tough to do.
Yeah.
You got to have some lungs.
Got to have lungs. You got to join our band that we really want you to join anyway.
Got to have some lungs.
Got to have some lungs. So he came over and he, of course, nailed it. And, again, mind blown. My little brain just blew up and we were just very excited. A couple of weeks later, he came over and we went through what was not yet Final Holocaust. It was Wicked Tricks. He changed all of the vocal line and the lyrics. He came over, we to my garage, and we started ripping into Wicked Tricks. And then he goes to that chorus of Final Holocaust. Okay, Steve, you keep blowing my head up. I mean, dude, you just keep freaking us out. Like Final Holocaust just melted us. We were just freaking out at what he did to that song.
Wow. Is it safe to say, I'm sorry to interrupt, that Final Holocaust was the first real Slayer song?
Well, we had a couple before.
With Steve.
I think with Steve, with Steve, because we had Panzer before Steve.
Right.
We had Blitzkrieg and Panzer before Steve. We had another song Don brought in. He called it Iron Fist. I don't remember how to play it. We just never recorded it.
Okay.
It would be a trip to do that. But I think Kronk put something together for Iron Fist. And Bob had something laying around called Dragon Slayer. This really heavily, Bob was into chromaticism big time. You know, he was going through a Frank Zappa phase or whatever. So he had this, I guess it's If You Want Evil Now. That's what it turned into.
Okay. Wow.
That was Dragon Slayer. And it was just a complex instrumental at the time that it was walking chromatic lines all over guitar. I don't think Don and Dave were really too receptive to it at first. We just thought, oh, there's Bob being weird again, kind of thing. So it never really fleshed out with a vocal line at that. Not yet. I guess they pulled it off later. But yeah, I guess that would be the first one that Steve put a vocal line to in lyrics. Yeah.
Wow.
And then Prepare to Die, that we started. Well, Vince Livingston was one of Bob's buddies, one of our high school friends. He just loved to scream Prepare to Die after rehearsals, and he'd come over and he had this crazy scream. He would just scream out when he'd leave, you know, like Prepare to Die. And then like Cooper took it and
wow, really
made a hook out of it.
Yeah. Wow. So someone, this is the first that I've ever heard this Vince person mentioned.
God, Bob's buddy. I'm surprised to hear that.
That started a title track.
Yeah, I guess it just kind of came out in the front yard while he was in his car. I mean, that was his intro and outro. Prepare to Die. He'd scream it out. And I don't know where he got it from.
Your buddy Vince, it was just a war cry.
Right, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so Cooper thought it was a blast, and so he put some lyrics to it. I remember going to the when he previewed the lyrics to us. He said, and we were riding around in one of our friends' big old LTD or something. We were coming back from the Blue Room.
Okay.
And I know Steve and I were in the car. I think maybe Don and Dave, maybe Bob. And he starts reciting the lyrics, the verse. Hey guys, check out these lyrics, right? Up here we bleed and fight to see that metal never rust. And he went on. I thought, man, that's badass, really clever, you know. So that would have been probably the second tune that he put together.
Wow.
So and eventually you had a handful of songs, and we've heard the story about Bob O'Neill seeing you guys somewhere, and then you guys end up basically getting
we got fronted,
studio time.
We did.
Yeah.
Well, we first rented out the Boss studio just to make a demo.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
So there's the Prepare to Die demos, and we recorded Blitzkrieg, Panzer, and I think Final Holocaust.
Okay.
I don't know if we had Prepare to Die yet. I'm not sure. We had vocals on those tracks too. Anyway, so Bob was interested in us, and he was curious about us. I wouldn't say interested. Again, not a lot of metal going around the town at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
This is 81.
82, early 82.
All right.
And, San Antonio had we had kind of a punk scene, a new wave scene, some local original acts, new wave kind of thing. Yeah, kind of a lot of new wave, but metal not so much.
You had Butthole Surfers. You had Fearless Iranians from Hell.
A little bit later, that started the punk scene started really blowing up a little later. Or maybe right about the same time. Yeah, because I remember going into the Boss one time and they were mixing a Butthole Surfers song.
Yeah,
but so that just lined up with the Battle of the Bands that was scheduled for that summer. So Bob got to see us live. And one of the pictures I just sent you is actually from that Battle of the Bands.
Excellent.
And, he was impressed, so that's when he asked us if we'd be up for doing an EP and front us the time. And so then we just shortly thereafter, that summer of 82, we went in to lay the tracks and finished up the mixing and everything by the end of the summer, I think.
Amazing.
I think I recorded one of those leads on my birthday, actually my 18th birthday.
Wow.
So the result is, of course,
That's
the
it.
Prepare to Die EP.
Yeah.
And I asked Bob, and he couldn't quite recall. First of all, this is like one of the most metal album covers of all time. It's
Yeah.
so metal. And I was asking Bob if he recalled what, if anything, the symbols were surrounding the goat head or the ram head. Do you know what the meaning is, if there's any meaning, or is it just gobbledygook?
I don't know. I wasn't around for it, but I think I kind of remember hearing that Ruben was involved with the concept.
Okay.
Those symbols are actual runes. Those
Really?
runes, those symbols are occult related runes. In that order, they probably mean, eat at Joe's.
Yeah.
But there's not really.
Like the Chinese tattoo.
I
Yeah.
really don't think that there's any. Rhyme or reason to the order of those
Shock
symbols.
value, some kind of shock value.
Yeah, but I've seen those. It's like this is not way off course at all. We recently interviewed Crusher Jewel, who created the Kerrang logo and Diary of a Madman Ozzy Osbourne logo with the static and everything. And he did the same thing on those early Ozzy records, at least in Diary, where there's a bunch of script and it's just art. It's completely made up hieroglyphic,
Random,
symbols, occult looking. Just, it doesn't mean shit. And I think that he even said that in there it says something like "Hi Susan," like his girlfriend's name.
Yeah.
Hi Pam.
His girlfriend at the time was Pam, and
That's
so
right.
the only thing in there that's actual language is the name Pam, but it's blended in with all these other random symbols that mean nothing. And then, of course, as teenagers, we all sat around trying to decipher it with a scratch, a pad of paper and a pencil, trying to do, okay, this symbol is duplicated over here. I think it's a T. It's and this one must be an M, and we're trying.
That's funny.
Well,
Anyway, I was just asking about the Prepare to Die EP because that album
That's rock and roll.
is awesome, and
it's as comical as someone reading into it like backward masking, like it's got some evil.
Yeah, exactly.
Evil.
But at that time, it was all about the shock, as Art says.
Right.
It's like, hey, it's mysterious, therefore.
Yeah, it was just rock and roll, and we can misspell in any dialect or language. So.
That's right. Horror. Yeah. It's horror movies and colors and imagination. Yeah.
So I think that was actually a door at behind the studio somewhere that they used.
Yeah. Well, we said something to that effect.
We got the story that Bob O'Neill actually went in his Mercedes, in his fancy car. He may have gone to Bernie. He went out and where there was like a ranch, and he got it off the side of the road. I think he saw it leaning against a barn, and he knocked on the door and, hey, what are you doing? Hey, can I have this? And he threw it in his car, and I can't remember the other guy's names. The names are actually on this. They're credited. Hold on. So that maybe you'll remember these names. It says right here, it says cover photography, Steve Olson. It says front cover art, Mike Taylor. These names.
Mike Taylor was one of the engineers at the Boss, and it was a session bass player.
There you go. So this was all put together. Yeah, it credits Ruben Rodriguez, cover photography and artwork by Steve Olson and Mike Taylor. So it's all happening.
Taylor was a character. Yeah, that makes sense.
Those of us who grew up in this area and in this scene and are familiar with the original release of the Prepare to Die EP, I'm always astonished when I go to a record convention and I see it hanging on the wall. It's like the Holy Grail, and they're selling it now for hundreds. I think I've even seen it top $1,000.
Really?
I was going to ask you, number one, what's the highest price you've ever seen attached to it? And number two, how bizarre is that for you to look back on that as a grown man and realize you were a kid when this artifact came out, and now it's so collectible? Yeah. I mean, it's highly collectible.
I got this one for 81. Says right there.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Gosh.
81. Which
Yes.
I thought was okay, and obviously I had one already, but I needed two.
How much
Exactly.
you get priced for, Art? How
Well,
much?
last time I paid attention was like to that was maybe it was a long time ago. I first heard about one in the '90s, a copy going for like $250 or something, and that was the moment I had that you're describing. Like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
wild. And this was before the internet was up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes it even kind of weirder in a way. But
Do you recall how many copies original pressing, which both of these are, by the way?
oh, nice.
And Dave has the beautiful reissue.
Reissue on Skull. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's a great representation, but he didn't pay. He didn't pay
It's not as
$250.
rare. It's not as rare today because of the reissue.
Or the reissues. Plural reissues.
Yeah, it got bootlegged a number of times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Over
because
the
there was
years.
demand for it, because that original pressing was so rare and so hard to find that that will always
That
spawn
was my
bootleg.
question. Do you recall how many copies were originally pressed?
I don't. I would be guessing if I said 1,000. I do remember Bob O'Neill calling me when the shipment came in, and I went over there to get a copy. This was after I was out of the band, and I saw boxes there. I want to say there were like 1,000. I think I had heard later down the road that there were 1,000 copies initially.
I mean, that's a lot. That's 1,000 is a big number in 1983.
Yeah, it is.
Bunch of kids, yeah. Do you still have a copy?
Bob wanted to have that. I mean, maybe it was a better deal to get 1,000 at the time.
Of course, yeah.
Do you still own a copy, Art?
Yeah, I still have that same copy Bob gave me.
Good, because I always make the joke that guys in bands are the last to have their own merchandise.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't told this story yet. With a member of Slayer, SA Slayer, in the room, but I have at least I don't recall. Forgive me if I have. I was, of course, gifted. Well, of course, that's not very humble, but gifted a copy of the record and autographed. And I was so excited about it. I lent that record out and never got it back. It's obviously mine. It says to Jason, love. The guy, whatever. It just has all the guys. Yeah, I think that I went somewhere else to get you to sign it later on, but it's autographed, and I lent it out, and I never got it back. So these copies that I have here are my cured
Backup copies.
They're my curing of my long lament for.
I get it.
It was terrible. I
Is there any chance of getting it back, or is the person?
I'm not gonna chase that. That's my fault for thinking that they were going to go, here's your records back.
Well,
They know who they are.
Yeah.
Return it, damn it.
I'll see it on a wall at a record convention somewhere, and it'll be going for $10,000.
They can't sell it because what are they going to do? Like erase the Sharpie and the ballpoint pen?
They'll gift it to a guy named Jason, or a guy
they
named
would
Jason
have to.
Yeah,
I know some Jasons that'll take it.
Art, where were you
Bring it
the
back.
time you became aware of another band called Slayer? And what did that trigger in your mind? Like, oh shit, here who are these guys, and what are we going to do? We're both called the same thing.
I was out of the band when I think I heard O'Neill got that cease and desist, but I remember we were hanging at War Heights one time, and we were sitting at the table, on the dining room table. I think it was Don wanted to talk about something. We were talking about.
But you were out of the band at the time?
No, at this point with the meeting, I was they're still in the band.
Okay.
It was further back. We were rehearsing at War Heights.
Okay.
And Don brought up something about some interest that we were getting. I think it was from one of the guys that we recognized later. But Bryant Slagle or one of those guys was starting an independent label. It was Combat or Metal Blade early in its infancy or something like that. So one of them had.
Yeah, Metal Blade was 82, so it could have been, but
It could have been.
he picked up LA Slayer early on. I mean, they were on like Metal Massacre 2.
I remember something about okay, so somebody likes the band and the sound. They just don't like the imagery. They don't like the occult thing. There were some of the connotations. I just remember a conversation to that sense. And then we thought it was funny that later they were involved with LA Slayer.
Okay.
So
Wow. So it was
Don might remember that better than I do.
it sounds like someone who had some toys for you to play with was interested but not sold because they were
The devil thing.
they were worried about how that would come across. I mean, obviously in heavy metal it's like the scarier it is,
Yeah.
the more people want it.
Sure.
And I feel like how both Slayer, and this is sort of not even leaving the room to talk about this. It's obvious what I just said is 1,000 times over proven. But both bands had the same imagery and dabbled in the dark. It's no different than Black Sabbath or 1,000 other bands that were doing. Toying with ideas of the occult in lyrics and just writing powerful imagery within words and photographs on covers and band images and things like that. Mayhemic overkill, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like, if you're scaring someone's parents, you're doing it right. And so I feel like that's where this person who was showing interest in the band and maybe asking you guys to soften your look a little, which
I kind of remember something like that.
Okay. Wow.
But I don't know from who or what the details were.
Yeah. Well, the image never got softened.
Well, the answer was no, I guess. At some point.
Yeah. Well, and the cease and desist and the fact that Brian Slagle and Slayer were making records faster than you guys could. It was kind of like
that's what happened.
And I really feel like it, to my knowledge, and I'm going on by just what I know from all of you guys, and just kind of even being standing there watching the wind blow back and forth. That Don and Dave and even Cooper were somewhat involved with Mark Reale already prior to the or the band had actually broken up. You were gone. They had got Ron. They were playing songs. This is Ron Jerzombeck for those listening. And you're playing shows as with that lineup. You record, you finish writing, and you record "Go for the Throat." And then the next thing you know, before that record never came out, and the band is already broken up because they felt like, well, we got cease and desist. Do we change the name? There was even ideas, and maybe something about this just from standing there and knowing everybody.
Well, yeah, sure. I remember when Mark started hanging out over at Rick's and just would hang out with us. Of course, we were really starstruck. I mean, we covered this guy's songs just a year before.
Yeah.
This was an arena dude. This is holy smokes. It's a real freaking rock star here, man.
We're talking Mark Reale from Riot.
Yeah.
I mean, we covered his songs. And so this was a real dude. And I remember him, he had some gear. Really nice. He had killer gear, the vintage Marshall red Tolex in Ricky's garage. And he was out there. I remember him writing the riffs to Born in America. I think he was working on that album because Restless Breed was already out.
Yeah.
And by the way, I sent you a picture with me rehearsing with Red. You can look that one up.
Oh, cool.
That was way later.
Well, but, it'll be in the intro. So by this point in your episode, people will all have already seen that.
Very cool.
Montage.
Nice. He was still doing Riot. And Born in America he was working on that album. And I was out of the band, but then he wanted to do demos. He wanted to do another project. So he started doing demos at the Boss with Dave and Don and Steve,
Yeah.
three-fifths of Slayer. I don't remember if he was using them to demo Riot songs or to, I think that was just straight out Narita. He was demoing Narita because he wanted to test the waters with a new project.
Yeah, okay.
And to my knowledge, that's really what broke up Slayer. I remember talking to Dave McLean on the phone one time about that whole thing. We just had it was a random phone conversation. But anyway, and we were talking about the Narita thing and kind of the direction they were kind of starting to, he himself was thinking about career-wise.
Okay.
Right. So obviously Narita was a pretty far throw from Slayer. Right.
Yeah.
If you remember. So that was a really good 4-piece band. And, this was an 84, maybe.
Yeah,
Something
that
like that,
sounds
83,
right.
84.
Yeah.
And so they're going for a little more of a marketable sound, I guess, if you want to use that word.
Lean more towards hard rock than
It was more hard rock.
Well, and I even think,
maybe.
just to be, I'm sorry to speak over you guys, I feel like Riot had that, a little bit of that going, where it was more, I don't want to say stock riff, or comfortable melodic rock. It was already in Riot. And you guys at Slayer and even Carion songs and Panzer, for God's sake, had great melody and time changes. And it was a little busier maybe than some popular Riot songs that may have even started to spawn or get Mark. And I'm speaking out of my shoes here, but because but it sounds like Mark was, you explained it better. You described it better. He was just sort of trying something fresh.
What's not to like? You had this killer rhythm section.
Yeah.
With McLean and Don's got, he's a prolific songwriter. And then Cooper. I mean, everybody looked fucking great. It sounded amazing.
Yeah.
And Mark Reality is a little bit longer in the tooth. He's got a bunch of young talent here that has everything they need. Sure. I mean, it was obvious. The attraction was obvious,
So it's in San Antonio, where Riot is fucking huge. I mean, they're a household name in San Antonio at this point.
Some mid-level bands are really big over here. Riot was one of them.
Yeah.
Moxie, Lakes Diamond,
Yeah.
But Riot, well, I can't think of any more. Saxon's another big one here.
Yeah,
like
UFO
for
Queen
sure.
Strike. Yeah.
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 But sure, they were huge here, man. I mean, we love them.
Well, all because of Joe Anthony. We must give credit to that. Yeah.
You got Joe Anthony's feet up there? Did you get that in Austin?
No, we had to pretty much go to New Braunfels to start getting it, I think.
Oh, okay.
Like we would
I'm
have
from
it.
San Antonio, so I was listening to it where you were listening to it, Art. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I remember.
I grew up on the northeast side of town where you're talking about rehearsing back in the day.
Did you really?
Yeah, I went to Madison High School.
Oh, we were in the same school district.
Yeah,
we were at Roosevelt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So driving from Austin to San Antonio, which I in 1983 alone, I did 1,000 times that year.
Oh, sure.
And every time I would reach a point, it was like, I'd have it on 99.5, just waiting for it to come on. And of course, it depended on what time of day it was.
Sure.
And by the time Joe Anthony was on, I was already in San Antonio or even on my way out of town.
Yeah.
Because my business was done, or I was there to giving someone a ride to and from Austin, whoever it may be.
Go to the Cameo shows, the Fontana shows, go to War Heights,
all of that. And
go to Conquistador show.
Yep. Far out.
Remember Joe Anthony playing you on the radio for the first time?
Yeah, it was I think it was Carion's version of Panzer.
All right.
Oh, that was exciting.
Yeah.
So Carion, just for the timeline, is the band you formed after Slayer. Is that right?
Yeah. Maybe he played Prepare to Die first. I don't remember that.
I feel like I heard "Prepare to Die" on the radio.
It must have, maybe it was, but I do remember hearing Panzer and then hearing Petting Zoo later in the 90s. I was in a band called Petting Zoo in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But Carion, yeah, that was a band I formed right after Slayer. That had Kronk. I reconnected with Kronk, and we found a new drummer. Frank Ferreira is an awesome drummer. And
Yes.
I started working with Pete Pettis, this phenom of a bass player. This is freakishly talented. Our homegrown Steve Harris mixed with Geddy Lee,
Ron Jarzambek on bass.
Yeah, it was, all by ear. I mean, it's all talent. All talent.
Right.
I remember going to pick him up for practice one time, and Pete must have been no older than 17. And he's got a Jeff Berlin it's a Weather Report, a jazz band. Jeff Berlin is his, one of the heavyweights of jazz bass. 17-year-old kids just don't learn these solos from Jeff Berlin.
No.
And he comes, hey man, Art, check this out. And he plays along with this bass solo on a song, Alan Holdsworth. No, it's an Alan Holdsworth album, not Weather. Alan Holdsworth, Water on the Brain, Part 1 and 2. Crazy long, minute-long bass solo. And he's just nailing it. Learned it off the vinyl. He's 17.
Wow, yeah.
Doesn't know lick of theory or read, and he nailed it. Just, Pete, what the hell, man?
Beautiful.
I'm going to quit,
Yeah.
Let's go to practice and play some metal,
How long was Carion around for?
Formed in 83, summer of 83, demo, late 84. Last gig was 86.
Okay.
Via Fontana. I think we were the last band to play at Fontana. I've got video of that show.
Wow.
Is there an album that came out of that?
Well, yeah, actually, we made a demo. It was pretty rough. We recorded it in this little 8-track studio in Converse, Texas. It's a municipality just outside of San Antonio. You probably know about it.
Yeah.
It was this guy's home property. That was like a 5-track demo, maybe 6. And, it just collected dust. I literally had the Ampex tape in the storage box for the longest time. And I never threw it away. I just kept it. And around 2005, I started learning about tape trading underground metal culture, and that, people knew about SA Slayer. I found a website from Russia with a Prepare to Die download and Carion stuff out there floating around. And I thought, well, there's some interest in this stuff. So I made a couple of calls. I think it was Liliana Martinez, or maybe it was Ron. Maybe told me to get in touch with Chris Liebengut. I guess he's a promoter. I'm sure Jason knows him. I think he manages Ron.
Of course I do.
Real nice guy.
Yeah, he's the best. He's back in Switzerland now. Swiss Chris is what we called him. He actually lived with Rick and Doug. He lived in the Watchtower band house for a couple of years before moving to Los Angeles. And he recently, just a couple of years ago, moved back to Zurich. But yeah, Chris Liebengut is a big name and a big player in a lot of our circles. So yeah, continue. Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, yeah. So I was told to contact him. One of them suggested that, and then I started emailing him, introduced myself. Hey, Chris, I'm so and so and so. He said, "Yeah, I know who you are, man." And I asked him, "What do you think about the idea of taking these demos?" I literally just blew the dust off one, and then digitizing it and maybe putting it out. And he thought it was a great idea. And he guided me literally step by step via email to do the whole process. He was very generous with his correspondence and his advice and his guidance. I was very grateful. Really nice guy. And so I decided to do it myself the whole thing myself instead of going with a small label and letting them do it. I just felt like I wanted to do the process. I wanted to learn it. I'm not going to do it again. It's a pain in the ass. But no. So I printed some copies of that, and then I tried to track down Pete and Frank to get a reunion show together. It took me about a year, it took a while to get that whole package put together because I didn't have enough songs, enough audio material. So Chris suggested I get some video or something else in liner notes and put more content in there. So it took me quite a while to get the video. I had to track down Frank Pereira, and he had an old tape. And after a couple of months, he was able to send me a copy on a CD, on a DVD. And so I put that out, and then I eventually talked everybody into doing a gig. But we didn't. Frank wasn't available, so Chip was already on hand. Chip Alexander,
Right.
Yeah.
who's done a whole bunch of different projects with us.
He's a go-to San Antonio drummer. He's a go-to.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He is. Yeah, I mean, he's done the Legion and Martyrhead and
Yeah.
all my cover band Black Molly and his old projects. He's just
Militia.
the guy's playing Militia. The guy plays all the time. He's a total workhorse.
Yeah.
He did Carion. He did the Legion.
Yeah.
But
Is that project available? Is that Carion release available now?
My question.
no, I'll send you a couple of copies. Sure.
I
I'm just
have
talking
it.
for listeners.
I have it. If listeners want to buy it, how do they find it?
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about.
Oh
If it's-
boy, I think I'll have to look. CD Baby.
What's the website, bro?
CD.
Is it released on CD Baby?
Well, it
doesn't
was.
do,
I'll have to check that account. I
yeah,
haven't
CD
really.
Baby doesn't do physical.
People will have to just look for it. It's Carion, Karion, right?
Yeah, you can go to Hog Wild Records,
Oh, okay. San Antonio.
and I think Rockadrome carries copies.
Oh, okay. So
The
Rockadrome
Rockadrome
has a distribution website. Yeah.
Okay.
That's Dennis Bergeron, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He's
That's,
great.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was able to get a booking for a reunion show.
Well,
And-
you played Kit as well.
Well, yeah, we had a couple of reunion shows booked here, and then next thing I know, Oliver contacted me.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about Kit, and then
Wow.
Keep it.
he offered the slot for
Kit is short for our listeners. If you're new, welcome. But Kit is short for Keep It True Festival in Germany.
Right.
wonderful festival.
There's Keep It True and Keep It True Rising. It's probably the best on the planet for the tape trading community from the early '80s to the now.
Right.
That is keeping true metal alive. And is fantastic at reforming and making sure that the original members who are still walk among us are there on stage playing these songs live for fans who are rabid about it. And you and I and our friends have been lucky enough to be invited to go over there and play. And it's an honor to be able to do that.
Totally.
We just talked to Tony Dolan, who is in Venom Inc., right? He's in Venom, right?
Okay.
He's the singer, bass player for Venom Incorporated, right? And he mentions Oliver Weinsheimer and we just talked to him at 9 a.m. this morning, which is
Wow.
3 p.m. in Newcastle. And so Oliver's getting a lot of love today here on the Talk Louder podcast.
Well, good. Well deserved.
Yeah, well, for sure, well deserved. Well, we make sure that people understand who he is and what he means to us. So Carion does a couple of warm-up shows and then gets a call from Kit.
Yeah.
And, did you sell some? Did you see any blast and merch of sales of that CD?
I did some over there.
Good.
And we had the merch made over there too, instead of transporting it from here.
Oh, good.
But it was really exciting to get that, and I told the guys about it. And Pete had toured over there before, so he was pretty familiar with what to expect. But it was new to me and the other guys. He wanted to book us this was at the end of 2013. He wanted to book us for 2015, which would have been cool because Uli Roth was on that lineup.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been like a childhood dream could come true. But what happened was in 2014, Iron Cross canceled. So then he came back and asked if we want to take that slot. So we went ahead and now is better than later because we don't know what's going to happen later. Let's take it now.
So Pete Perez, let's give a little more love to him real quick. You said he's familiar with touring Japan and Europe and all that, that's with a version of Riot. Am I correct?
Right.
Okay.
90s.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Just making sure that people who are listening know who to look up.
So this Carion gig in Germany, I mean, that's got to be another one of those moments where you look back and as all these years later and go, oh my God, I can't believe there's enough interest to generate this kind of, an offer and then a huge crowd. It's probably the biggest crowd you ever played in front of, with that band by a long shot.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to process for all of you guys. Jason's the same way with Watchtower. It's like this thing that you put together when you're barely in your 20s, and then 40 years later, there's an audience for it, a big audience. You know?
Whether you didn't get past demo stage at all, you're a cult. It's a cult.
Yeah,
it is. It
gotta blow your mind.
Yeah, it did.
See that? Yeah,
it did blow my mind. And when I got there, even more blown away. There were guys in their 20s that knew maybe a little more about the San Antonio rock scene than I did.
Wow.
Yeah. These guys are from Portugal.
Wow.
And one of them said they were on the fence about going to KIT, but when Carion got booked, he decided to go.
Wow. That's got to really blow your mind.
I kind of see it, and I'm just becoming emotionally romantic here when I say this. It's kind of like, Carion's playing, they're a fucking unicorn. I want to see a unicorn.
Yeah.
And so they finally, click the box. They check that box, and I'm going. I gotta fucking go now, and it's like it's like some kind of pilgrimage.
Yeah.
And for those listening and watching, this kind of stuff is like, if you are passionate about art and the music that you truly love, these are. I mean, Oliver Weinsheimer has created these moments for you to see the top of the mountain where everyone's invited. You just have to, make sure you have a paper route.
Passport.
Make sure you have a passport and a paper route in order because you got to get there. But creating these moments for someone to actually, buy your ticket, buy your plane fare, find a place to stay. And it's truly a pilgrimage to live for the 40 minutes that you're going to be on stage to play songs on that they first heard on a rickety fucking cassette and, that someone dubbed for them in 1984.
It's mind blowing, man. I was that level of devotion I really felt it there. It hit me hard.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of an emotional experience.
Yes.
Sure.
Same.
Yeah.
It is every time, though. It's not just the first time you go, Art, and you well know this. You've drank the punch, right? You're involved. You're in this relationship.
I drank the blood already.
Yeah, you did. They passed around the chalice. You held it up to the sky and shouted, "Prepare to die."
Exactly.
You drank the fucking.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
So bring us up to speed. Where are we with this current reunion of SA Slayer? Are you guys rehearsing? How many gigs are on the table?
We've got rehearsals. We've been talking about starting them up in early February with guitars. So I've got a thread going with Bob and Ron. We've talked about getting the guitar parts together. So when we go in with the rhythm section and Jason, we'll have some things worked out. But if we have time, I think maybe it's a good idea to talk about the Legion for a minute.
Sure.
Of course.
Because the Legion went to KIT also.
Yeah, and played Slayer songs.
We played Slayer songs in Juggernaut and Watchtower.
Right.
And Militia.
And we did Watchtower songs with two guitars, which is really hard to make sound tight with two guitars.
Yeah, it is.
It's hard enough with one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was hard for us to keep those riffs in lockstep. There's a lot going on with Tyrants in Distress,
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun and super challenging. I had to play Billy's parts. I mean, come on, man. That was
You did
brutal.
great.
I had to do some homework. I had to do a lot of homework. But the Legion.
Real quick, what's the proper name of this conglomeration? You keep referring it to it as the Legion, but for people,
The South Texas Legion.
okay, South Texas Legion, and it's a composite of guys like yourself, guys from Watchtower, guys from Juggernaut, guys from SA Slayer, etc. Guys from
Militia, Hellstar.
If I may, Art, it seemed like it was an invitation. Your baby. An invitation to all that would love to contribute to the celebration of South Texas metal between, 82 and 86.
85, 86,
yeah. And to not necessarily make the plan to take it on the road, but to do a few gigs in celebration that I believe was quite, I could be wrong, but spawned by Tex Pop. Okay.
Tex Pop. They're kind of the local history museum.
Yeah.
And they wanted to do a Texas metal rock and roll capital San Antonio thing for a 6-week exhibition.
Oh, right.
They contacted me just as a kind of a consultant to get some information from and get some history. There were a couple of young ladies running it. There was one, forgot her name, Ruby, but she was
that's her.
Curator of all of this stuff. She was assembling everything, and I met with her, and we just had to sit down and just like we are now, just asking me about how what happened during that time, and I just came up with the idea just in that conversation of maybe seeing if a couple of the old gang might want to get together and do a performance there.
Yeah.
On location, which actually happens to be right behind the Boss recording studio.
Yeah, it shared the same wall. Like the wall, like the other side of the wall is where all of this shit was coming to fruition.
Yeah.
Wow.
So she thought it was a good idea, and I started messaging everybody and see who was in, and then it kind of fell together from there. And then we put that performance together in kind of a backyard area that they have behind the museum and looking at the back of what used to be the Boss.
That was fucking packed, and it was great fun and an unbelievable... I mean, from a production standpoint, it was a little bit of a shit show, but I'm not crying over that because of the looks on people's faces.
It was something,
including ours, and the material that was being played, and the people on the makeshift stage that were playing it. And
it was a makeshift stage. Yeah, it was something.
Yeah.
We had a whole bunch of the gang involved, and it was exciting. I just loved playing those songs too. It was so much fun, and it was packed. I mean, they had a line around the building for a while.
Yeah, and once the, if I may, the couple of other shows that ended up happening, we did another one that was basically our warm up show because you got a call from Oliver.
Yeah, again. I think someone had a live feed of that show that we were doing.
I think you're right, yeah.
I saw a replay, and I saw a couple of guys. I saw Bart Gabriel chime in on it. But then I heard from Oliver again, and okay. Let's do this again. I'm up.
Bring the Legion to do an afternoon set at KIT.
That was nice.
I saw the photos from that. You guys had a nice crowd.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's usually always sold out months in advance.
Totally. Yeah. So I think Oliver wanted to emphasize the Texas part more.
Yeah.
So they came up with another logo over there for Texas Metal Legion.
Yeah.
Which is how we're known in Germany.
Right.
Okay.
That's okay. I didn't get butthurt about that, but I really do. I'm hopelessly romantic to the idea of South Texas because that's where I was born and raised. And so the South Texas Legion is more attractive to me, but I understand the ploy of a bigger reach, even though, the songs we were playing were all done by bands between here and Corpus Christi.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
that's true.
to be clear,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And we had a great time, didn't we? That was something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. So this is kind of related to the talks about a reformation of S.A. Slayer, and all happening around the same time. I must admit, and also related to the idea that Hell's Heroes is becoming this force, which is again in South Texas, down in Houston, at the White Oak Music Hall every March. Which, we've talked about your emotional and my emotional involvement in being asked to do this, and if I may get personal a little, if let's talk about the elephant in the room. We're going to have 3 guitar players,
Yeah.
and this is a first for S.A. Slayer. And if I may explain a little bit, you and Bob are in this band called Slayer, and working together even prior to when you had the name, and you've graciously told us the stories today, and they're fantastic, about the formation of the band, and then Prepare to Die happens, and your exit, and then finally the record comes out, but Ron's already in the band, and they're writing Go for the Throat, and all of this crazy frenetic energy, and the scene and the footprint is growing and spawning, and Carion and Watchtower and Slayer and Hellstar and Militia and just and later Devastation, and just all Matrix, and just it goes and goes and goes. And here we are, it's going to be 2025. And you mentioned earlier the thread of emails, the group chat that has all of the members in it. And we get Bob involved. It's you and Ron first, and then Bob involved. Thank God. And here's why I am so happy that this is happening first at all. But the fact that there's going to be 3 guitar players is like, and I've said it before, there's a lot of bands with 3 guitar players. When your favorite band has all these dual harmonies, who's playing rhythm guitar under it other than the bass player? And that would be Steve Harris and Ian Hill and Philip Lynott and people like that, who they're working hard back there while there's this dual or triple, according to the studio tracks, harmony guitar shit going on that's like crazy, and guitar nuts go wacky for it. Sure. So when Slayer plays these harmonies, there's going to be, if not 3-part harmonies, there will be guitar underneath these double harmonies, and the potential for trading off is going to be electric. And this is obviously I'm excited about this idea of having this metal party on stage with 6 people on the fucking stage. And this is happening at Hell's Heroes, and you could see I'm fired up about the whole thing, about this 3 guitar thing. Yeah. But the call came after Hell's Heroes was solidified, and our involvement at Hell's Heroes, March 22nd of 2025. Headliners are Saxon and Coroner and all these other fantastic metal bands. We got the call from Oliver to do it in Germany, but tell the world what's going on and why, a truth of why you can't go with us. So it'll just be the 5-piece with Bob and Ron at Keep It True. And I just want to give you the platform to talk about some personal stuff, if you would if you would share with us as to possibilities as what I feel like might be a real reason why you can't go get on the plane with us.
Well, sure. Well, I did wrestle with it because I wanted to do it, but
we want you to do it, but yeah.
Well, this all kind of happened when Bob was spending some time to figure out if he could, dust off those chops to play all the parts and do all the homework and all that. And
he talked a little bit about that as well, and
and
showed us his shoulder. He goes, "Here's my shoulder." It's like, he got kind of fucked up.
Yeah,
I didn't know how bad it was until he talked about it.
Yeah, so apparently he was only able to test amps that he was fixing, test them a little bit. But I guess he's back on the horse. Obviously, he's got to be pretty confident.
Super happy and confident. His episode was great, and he was fired up and so smiley excited. So fucking excited, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I've got, I can't really, I don't feel comfortable leaving the country right now. I'm taking care of my mom about Monday through Friday, about 10 hours a day. She's in her upper 90s. She's 97.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. She was diagnosed with dementia about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
So
I've been there.
Hands-on.
I've been there, and I'm glad that you're willing to share. I've been there I went through that with my mom as well for a couple of years. Yeah.
It's tough.
It's real.
Yeah. And I don't feel comfortable leaving the country, considering I'm the primary medical power of attorney.
Yes.
And caregiver. If I'm a 2-hour flight away in Wisconsin or something, okay, I'm a little more comfortable with that if I have to bolt back home.
Right.
But not over the pond. If something goes down, I'd feel terrible if I wasn't around.
That would be called a worry flight.
Absolutely. Oh, okay. Yeah. That would be. I'd be a mess. So.
Yeah.
I really can't. Even if it's for a few days. I mean, I could have arranged. Caregivers to cover time for me, but I just don't. Of
course.
Yeah, it's probably not wise. So Bob was okay with going back to 5-piece and filling the spot, and Ron, I think I talked to him about it too. He wasn't really sure at first if he was going to be up for it, but I guess he obviously changed his mind. But I knew I couldn't write with him.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to, and I wrestled with it, but I knew I really couldn't. It's just too much.
In the scheme of it all, on the rock and roll side of the conversation again, I feel like everything worked out, and your involvement is not going unsung whatsoever. And I've already said it, I'm extremely proud and happy to be asked to do this at all, but even more so because you are involved and Ron is involved. It's important to me. It's seriously, Dave knows I've talked about it from the heart. It's very important to me that songs that you guys wrote when you were 17 and 18 years old are being relived by people that weren't even alive yet, or people that obviously missed it, or people that were there that are getting excited that they get to see their old buddies that they had English class with. Yeah. Doing this again for a purpose and a show of longevity, a show of celebration of life, of just celebration of art and passion coming from the right place. Yeah. And we're not doing this for the money. Oh, really? How many times have you heard that?
I'm still waiting on the money.
Yeah.
Ain't coming.
That's news to Art. Yeah.
Well, it's just something that all of us are still actually doing it. We're still playing. We're still lifers.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Well said.
I mean, who does that? So we do.
We apparently too dumb to quit.
Too dumb to quit.
I think it's great, man. I think I said this to Jason before, and I think I might have said this back when Watchtower was sort of getting reactivated. It's not only great for the fans, either, as Jason said, the fans that were there from the get-go who thought they'd never see it again, the people who have become fans that weren't alive when this was happening. But for me, and maybe even more importantly, I think it's really cool that all the high school buddies that are the band members get to reconnect and do this. And it's almost like a bit of a field trip, not just necessarily the Germany thing, but Hell's Heroes, it's a road trip to Houston, and come on, we're not getting any younger. That's got to be really cool for you guys.
I've definitely thought about that. I've reflected on the times when we used to play at the Blue Room and go to each other's shows.
Yeah.
And then here we are, we're going to be, doing this thing in Houston on a bigger stage. And that was another moment that struck me at the last Kit Festival with Legion, looking around to my left and seeing Jason and Bob and Scott.
Yeah. You're overseas.
And Harlan. And like, wow, man, this is like crazy.
Well, and let's just celebrate this for a second. When South Texas Legion was there at Kit, it was the same day as Juggernaut.
Oh yeah.
So the double duty was happening just hours apart, and it was a bunch of San Antonio, South Texas bros that, you know what I mean? And
it was the South Texas invasion of Kit.
It was, and I recall just being in the waiting area at the gate with like, wow, look, I'm hanging out with all these like San Antonio, Austin, like awesome like dudes I know who play metal, and what are we doing? Wow, it was like it was a fucking movie.
Yeah.
It was a movie, and it was something. It was moments that and you know what? We get to do it again, Art. We get to realize this moment again. It's like, wow, who would have ever thought? Not me.
And I know you guys have already thought about this, but make sure you print up tons of merch because you're going to sell a lot of T-shirts.
I think Don mentioned that. Don's on that, I believe.
Yeah, it's kind of out of
somebody's
my
on it.
Well, it's out of my hands, but just know that I've been like, hey, I'm like poking the bear, trying. Y'all working on that merch, because if I need to intervene, you know that I will.
Yeah.
Because you know what, that fucking clock is ticking. It's going to be.
I was going to ask real quick, Art, are you still in touch with Ruben Rodriguez by any chance?
Not in many years, no.
Okay, I was going to tell you to tell him I said hello, because I haven't seen or heard from him in 35 years.
I think he's back in town. I think he was in Colorado for a long time, but that's all I know. Bob maybe Bob is, I don't know.
Well, I'm happy for you guys, and I'm happy for the fans, and I know the buzz is already happening on the internet. So this is a great thing, man. It's a celebration.
I got to think there's a pretty good buzz. I first got a sense of that potential, I think, a few years ago when Martyrhead played. That was not mine, but our Motorhead tribute.
Yeah,
you and Bob,
Bob and Chip and Alexander and Andy Harris, and that ran for, God, we did that for 10 years, I think. But at one of the shows, I think Dave McClain came into town.
Yeah,
maybe it was over Christmas, and I think there was just some kind of grassroots buzz, random buzz that started. People were wondering if Dave was going to get on the stage. Dave and Don maybe get on stage and play something with Bob and Art. There was going to be a mini Slayer set too. So I don't know where that came from, but I started hearing about it.
Wasn't that a gig that Broken Teeth was on the bill? It was
I think so.
Broken Teeth and Martyrhead at Night Rocker.
Night Rockers.
Yeah.
I think there was some speculation that was going to happen.
McClain was there with his wife. That was the first time I met Bell.
Just that, I think that alone, the place was packed just on the people thinking there was a possibility.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I know the
partial Slayer.
You know that even back then I knew the lyrics to Prepare to Die. That
you could have done it.
That could have fucking happened.
You could have done it. You
know what? Completely unplanned. That shit could have gone down. And you know what? It didn't. It didn't. Here's the funny thing. It didn't need to happen. The buzz did it for you. There's already people talking shit.
Totally.
I wonder if they're gonna get up and do. It was obviously the question had created the Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Without it happening, even.
Without even happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you knew the tunes. I mean, I remember distinctly you jumping up on the stage at the Ritz or at the Fontana and throwing in a few lyrics, a few verses with Steve.
Yeah, Cameo. I introduced Slayer once at the Cameo, and I had the goat skull. I was holding the goat skull in front of my face, And I remember that show is with me announcing is on YouTube. I sound like Witchy Poo, you know, from, I sound like, you know, the witch from Puff and Stuff announcing them because I'm like, would you please welcome Slayer? You know, I did it in some weird cartoon King Diamond voice, I think, which is kind of fun and awesome.
Awesome.
But I hold the skull in front of my face. I thought I was cool.
Great times.
Yeah, good times, man. And that was later. That was a Slayer reunion, I think.
Was it really?
So that would have been like 85 and probably the very, very, very last official SA Slayer show, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure I was there.
Yeah, oh yeah. Everyone was there. Those Cameo was fucking bloody packed. So,
I was love. It was a great place, great sounding stage. I remember playing there with you guys, Carion Watchtower one year. I think that was.
Yeah, might have been
84.
Hellstar Carion or Militia Carion Watchtower.
It was something like that. Maybe. No, Hellstar usually headline their own things. I think it might have been Wizard.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know. But I remember we were probably second on the bill before you guys. And
yeah, I remember it because at the time in San Antonio, black metal was like this new thing, and all of the hardcores were all into wearing upside down crosses and putting black war paint on and having, you know, super, you know, nails on their, you know, and they talked a lot of shit about bands that didn't have the murky girth of early death metal.
yeah.
And if Death Tripper might have been on the bill, those people would have definitely been in the audience. But someone like even Watchtower or Carion coming on right after, they might have like started to murmur like Poser or words.
I remember.
Yeah. And I stood up for you guys.
I remember that very, very well. They were yelling, Carion sucks.
I don't even remember them exactly what they were murmuring or fucking right out shouting. But
yeah, it was right before y'all set or during your set, and you stopped the show and had a few choice words for them. And
yeah, I said Satan is a pussy. I invite, if Satan is somebody that wants to come up here and fight me right now, go ahead. Some shit like that.
Well, I remember you getting the crowd to chant "You suck." Like they sucked.
Yeah, I turned it around.
Turned it around, and I'm pretty sure they made their way out after that. And
well, when you're wearing the unpopular costume, it might be a good idea when it's not Halloween, and you're wearing an unpopular costume, dude. It's not Halloween. Am I overdressed? Oh, okay. But it's not that. It's not.
Mom did my makeup just right, man.
It's not check it. It's not the T-shirt you're wearing. It's the words coming out of your mouth.
Yeah.
That can sink your ship. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
And I didn't even mean to make that big of a deal about it. I just wanted them to know that you can't kill rock and roll. You just can't kill rock and roll. For you to talk shit about somebody who has a band and wrote these songs and they're playing them for you, if you don't like it, you can go to the restroom and have a smoke. You can do whatever. It's freedom of your free will to. But if you're just going to like outright protest, your minority is going to lose.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that spoke to the camaraderie we had between bands back then.
Well, it wasn't important. It wasn't even personal to the guy wearing, you know, who was wearing those words, vomiting the words that were making others uncomfortable. Yeah. It was more about, I hope you can take it. You can dish it. I hope you can take it. And the interesting thing is, you know, it bothered me enough to say something because I didn't want them to say it to anyone else. And so I just sort of like had to. I just had to.
Yeah, you totally did.
It was worth it.
I'll always remember that gig.
Yeah, it was a great gig.
That was amazing, dude.
Fucking great gig.
So good.
Yeah, that was in September of '85.
Yeah, it was a great memory. we were starting to blow up a little bit more in town.
Yeah.
I think it was just right after the Slayer breakup, the official breakup. And so
Yeah.
we were kind of, in a way, we had a little local PR. We were hitting some local magazines and stuff. And
Okay.
so Carion was starting to come into their own a little bit. And it was a lot of fun for us, you know.
It was a great time. I want to, before we go, because we got to wrap it up. This is an interesting, mind-blowing fact that when you think about this inception, I won't put a band name in the slot here, but the inception, let's just say phase 80, 81 to like 86. I'll just stop there, just create this. That it's a snap in the time. It's just a pew, as fast as a rubber band can fly across a room.
Yeah.
So much shit happened in those 5 or 6 years, man.
Yeah.
It's unreal to like put perspective on all of the things that we've talked about today in those just that handful of years. And look, someone wants to put us on stage again.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier.
It's wild.
That snapshot that you're talking about, I mean, just in this episode, we've covered it. It happened. Watchtower, there's demand. SA Slayer, there's demand. Carion, there's demand.
No.
It's a flash of light.
Militia.
Yeah,
Militia,
it's a flash of
Hellstar
light.
Militia.
Yeah, it's a flash of light.
Yeah, Hellstar, really never went away. So, yeah.
These demos and EPs went over the pond.
Yeah.
And the tape trading happened over there. The scene grew legs, the underground thing, and the interest grew. Unbeknownst to me, fast forward to 2005, when I kind of started getting an idea of what had been happening over the course of that time. And then, went down the rabbit hole a little bit and got pretty blown away by what I found.
Well, here we are 20 years after that in 2025,
Right.
about to relive it with the people that licked a stamp
Yeah.
and mailed that
Exactly.
and mailed that cassette tape in a little box over the pond, and then they licked a stamp and mailed a little box back over the pond.
Amazing.
This is a ripple effect, and we get to
And those fellas handed it down to their younger ones.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And now the internet does all the work.
And now, so now now I'm part of a legacy band. I just found out that term.
The sale of postage stamps has gone down considerably.
Exactly. Hey, real quick, Jason, before we wrap it up, we talked about high school for a minute. I, for a minute, went to an Austin high school. I went to the same high school you did back when, before I went back to Roosevelt. I spent part of my sophomore year at Austin High.
Wow. What year?
80, I want to say, spring of 80.
Okay, that might have been right before I got there, because I was at Austin High in 81.
Well, I should have stuck around because I had no metal buddies or rock and roll buddies. It wasn't really very rock and roll at the time over there.
Well, Mike Solis went there, and that's how I met Mike Solis, was in the cafeteria at Austin High School in 19...
Was he there? Did y'all arrive at the same time?
I bet he was there in 80 before me.
Oh, wow. I wish I would have met him.
As a junior.
I wish I would have met him.
As a sophomore, junior, whatever.
I lived pretty much right down the walkway there. The back then it was called Hike a Bike Trail.
Yeah,
along the Colorado, and I lived in these apartments right next to the school, and I'd make my way there.
Wow,
and,
I lived not far from there. I lived on Enfield, which is just a few blocks away. I walked to school. Yeah.
Did you really? Yeah, I was right off Lake Austin Boulevard.
Yeah, that's right there. Yeah,
wow.
That's a cool area of town. It's still a very, very choice part
Look,
of town.
now the culture was so different. Yeah, the culture. I drive by there occasionally for nostalgia, but the culture of school was so different than what I was used to in San Antonio Roosevelt.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So different. You had an open campus. You had the river across the week.
Yeah.
The open campus lunch, a river. It was beautiful. I loved my time there.
I feel like there was a lot of Westlake kids going there too that lived in Westlake, and me and the people that were living on the east side, et cetera, were were a little bit. I was lucky. I was smack dab in the middle, like you were. I didn't belong to any real clique, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I met Mike Solis, and it was like anyone who was into rock and roll and music and the whole, freak brother thing.
Yeah.
Those were my people for sure. But I got along with everybody. But it's interesting that that side of the tracks, as they say, were the Richies. Richie Rich lived over there, and the not so Richie Riches lived over here, and I was just in the middle going, "Hey guys, let's all get along." And I did it with rock. I did it with rock and roll. Me and Mike Solis, yeah. But we just missed you. We just missed you. But I swear, Mike Solis was already at the school.
Well, I should have found him out. You guys had a turntables in the library, and I met one girl there that liked Scorpions, and so she had a copy of Tokyo tapes that we listened to together there. I'm like,
gotta love
hey,
it.
I've got somebody here, because in San Antonio, I mean, rock and roll kids are all over the hallways. Everybody knew about Scorpions and whatever.
Yeah,
but not so much over there. It's a little different. I blame KLBJ, right?
Sure,
but because I remember I thought KLBJ, wow, your radio's kind of mild over here,
Yeah.
Yeah. But
a little bit more conservative on the rock and roll side of things in Austin, and hippie commune. I mean, Austin was still back in 1980, if I'll say, was still very the punk and the new wave stuff was still happening in Austin. 13-4 elevators with Rocky Erickson and all that. He had side projects going on, and he was probably the craziest and weirdest and heaviest, dare I say, in Austin when I arrived in late 80, early 81. And there was not really any metal, or I was just too young to be able to seek out anything that was heavier than that. But, I think that started to change in some kind of underground format. I mean, Crazy Train on the radio at the time, it kind of, that was the first like metal song I heard on KLBJ was Crazy Train. Yeah.
Wow. I remember the punk scene there. I stuck around there for the summer. I got a job at the Burger King across from UT.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I found out later was used for part of the filming of Rock the Casbah out there in the parking lot.
Oh, you're right.
I saw the video. Like, hey, wait a minute. I used to work there when I was last year. I worked there.
Yeah, I used to eat at that Burger King all the time. I'd go down there there was some cool record stores on the drag down there.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had Guitar Resurrection, the guitar shop, and then the record stores, and then you have the punk club right next to Raoul's.
Yeah, correct.
Remember
that's
that
right.
one?
Yeah,
so that's when I started. Yeah, I used to sneak in there to check out the Big Boys or Sharon Tate's Baby or whatever, STB. I remember that.
Yeah, legendary shit, bro. Legendary shit. Yeah. Art, thank you so much for your time today. This has been fucking awesome. We've clocked it in almost 2 hours, and we could go another 5.
I'm sure.
So just thank you for everything.
Not today.
And you know what? I can say this. Dave could say it too. I'm gonna see you real fucking soon.
Oh yeah, buddy.
Yeah. Congratulations, man. Congratulations to both of you and the entire scene that you guys represent. I think it's really cool that there's still demand for it in an audience, and not only here in Texas, but also overseas. I think that's really cool. Something you created when you were barely old enough to buy beer is resonating with people still today. So congratulations.
That's amazing.
All luck moving forward. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave, along with our special guest today, Art Villarreal from SA Slayer on the Talk Louder podcast.
Thank you, guys.